my computer, share my screen. Okay, so let me know if you guys are able to see my screen.
Yeah, Ramesh, we can see your screen.
Okay, so yesterday when we are trying to do, we got a problem. Our entity is unable to create a JDBC via our user class and the test class, right? So I haven't done anything yesterday. I want to see once you guys everybody come in here. Let's see, here is what I thought. So what I want to do is I want to take everything out of this and create. So user is what I'm trying to do. For user, I'm getting an error. So drop table if exist. Syntax error. User cascade identifier. Expected identifier. Somewhere an issue. Okay. Let's go to the next error. Syntax error in SQL drop table if user exists. Identify. What does it mean? It says error creating a table and error dropping. Okay, same error is what we are getting. Uh, Always check if you are able to run. There is a keyword user in a newer version of it today. You need to have an escape character correctly in a code instead of a single quote. Oh, okay. Let's remove this table name. If you remove the table name will be taken by whatever the class name you provide. Let us see if that is really causing an issue. Let me go on my UPS application and start the app. Tomcat is started, but still it's an error. User ID begin not null, email, password. Or rename the table. Or else use this one. So there is some feature came. That is where it's causing a problem, I guess. Let us see. In recent H2 database, there might be some feature came with a user, non-keywords as a user. Let us see what this will do now. Do you see? Do we got any error?
No.
So what is the error? Does database created and show SQL? Let us see. Where is show SQL? We don't have show SQL. I will add that property also. Do you see any error? No error, right? So what is the error we got? What is the error we got? Do you guys understand what exactly the error we got? So in your H2 database, there is a user. Somewhere in H2 database, there is a a user is defined as some of the statements. So if you see, the most common reason is the error in user is reserved keyword in SQL and especially in H2 database. So that is where it is giving us a problem. So the keyword it's taking as a keyword, it's not taking as a table name. So that is where we added a property non-keywords for user. You got it? So that is a problem. So easy to fix. You have to resolve. You have to go for an error and search in a Google. Try to understand what exactly happening and resolve it. Okay, you have to understand when you search something, go for a question first and try to understand. Try to don't go with the first approach or second approach. Try to understand what exactly all the possibilities you have and see which possibility makes more convenient. It will comes up with an experience, but you guys have to go through multiple approaches and see what makes you more better. Okay, I cannot use anywhere this one, right? App user or some things, right? The only thing I can make is instead of here in user table, add a table and name instead of a user, I will say it as a app underscore user. But instead of that, I have a good solution. I can go in non-keywords, make it as a user. Okay, and here I want to see what exactly happening in an SQL properties, how the table is getting created. So show SQL is what I want to see. Show SQL in which file? Show SQL in application.properties file, right? So let's see how we can update show SQL. If you see Spring JPA, show SQL true. Okay. What do you mean by SQL show true, Ramesh? So what does it mean is this is processing few of the SQL operations. I want to see how we got created a table. Okay, now I started. So if you see, earlier it wasn't shown anything. Now what it is showing? What it is showing in your console?
Create table with the name user.
Create table with the name user. Earlier,
Mm.
if you see earlier, this is the one which
It
it
didn't.
wasn't shown anything. And if you observe one thing, if I do any change here, so let me do instead of auto create, let me do an update and let me save the program. If you see I'm not running, I already Spring Boot is already running. I'll just save the program. I added changes, save. The Spring Boot auto restarted in the console. Once I do any change, this will auto restart. So if you see Spring Boot, this is started now again. Or else let me show you again. I'll try to change something. If you can see, is it changed? Rerunning? Is it rerunning the application? Is it rerunning, guys? Guys, question to you. In console, are you able to see the rerun? The Spring Boot? How it is rerunning? So if I do any change, I'm not running the application again. So if you see here, let me clear my console. Okay. I undo something changes made here again. Okay, I'll go back and I'll save the program. Is it restarted? How this restart is happening? We have seen an initial days. How this restart is been happening? Any guess? Any guess, guys? What is the libraries we are using to restart? Spring Boot, DevTools library. Am I right? Am I right, guys?
Oh, yeah, Ramesh.
So we discussed that earlier. Let me open the pom.xml. So in dependencies, we have Lambok, not Lambok, DevTools. If you see, DevTools is a runtime. So if I remove the DevTools, it won't restart. You have to manually start your Spring Boot application. To start your Spring Boot application, you have to use this one. And have you got a chance to look into what exactly happening with this at the rate Spring Boot application annotation? So at the rate Spring Boot application annotation is a combination of three different annotations. So this is a parent annotation where your Spring Boot application is going to be start, right? So this is what we are running. Am I right, guys? That is where it is taking. So we are running UPS application. Okay, that is where it's going and executing your application. When you run this application, so the application will look for at the rate auto configuration. At the rate auto configuration is like it will create auto configurations. And what are the other two annotations? Oh my goodness. Um, at the rate component scan.
Component scan.
At the rate component scan. So component scan is like it will scan all your components. Components are nothing but your controller, exception, model, repository, service, entity. All the components are being scanned by your Spring Boot and it will create a bin. If you haven't defined any annotations or if you haven't defined anything, the Spring Boot won't create the component for it. So one is auto configuration, meaning your pom.xml is going to look for application.properties and creating those configuration automatically. Have you created any bean for H2 database? Have you created any bean for H2 database out of adding the properties? You just added application.properties H2 database. Have you created any bean? No, right? It is automatically configured. Creating bean is like user equals to new user or auto-wire at the rate H2 database annotation. Have you done that one? We are not manually doing that. So Spring Boot has the capability of running it automatically. Have you created anywhere Tomcat server? No, right? The Spring Boot is automatically starting on Tomcat server. Am I right, guys? Am I right?
Yes.
Are you able to see here? Tomcat is started on which port? 8080.
8080.
Okay, you have to remember that too. So on which port what service runs? 8080 Tomcat runs. SQL runs on 3036. So your Kafka runs on another port. So depends on whatever the service you pick, it will runs on different ports. And your PostgreSQL runs on 3306. Sorry, not 5432. Okay, one is auto configuration, another one is component scan. There is another annotation. What is another annotation we have? Mm,
Is it like REST controller?
not REST controller. One is configuration, one is enable auto configuration, one is component scan. Let us see. Yeah, here. So if you see at the red Spring Boot application can be used, that can be enabled three features. Okay. So see Spring Boot official document. This is what I was saying earlier. Have you guys gone through Spring Boot official document? Here everything is there. So it is going to enable auto configuration. Okay. And it is going to do components scan and it is going to have your configuration detection. So three things. One is your Spring Boot, one is enable auto configuration, one is enable component scan, another one is enable configuration. So auto configuration is different, configuration is different. So this is going to register your extra beans. If you have any extra beans, so in our case, we don't have extra beans created, but in real time scenarios, we do create extra beans. That's where I was talking. If you want to connect to Kafka component, if you want to connect to Docker instance, we are going to create extra components. Now we are using inbuilt systems, H2 database and your Apache Tomcat. Those are inbuilt things. If you want to connect to any of your external components, we need extra bean configuration. But Spring Boot will automatically do that. So you have to just create a class and make it as a at the rate component. Okay, makes sense? Makes sense,
Yeah.
guys?
Yes.
Okay, so here it is given an example also. See Spring Boot application enable auto component scan. So main method is going to run your application. Yeah, Spring Boot document is very good. Okay, now this is started on localhost 8080. Now, and H2 is there in H2 console. Let us go in and see. Let us go to HTTP localhost HTTP. I'm trying to access my application slash local host running on which port? 8080/h2. Do you see what is the console I got here? What is the console I got here? H2 console, right? In H2 console, if I try to test connection, it says test database not found. We are not using test database. What is the test database? What is the UPS DB is what we are doing. Am I right? This is what we define in our properties. If you see what is the properties we have, driver class H2 driver, and this is JDBC H2 meme and the database name. So if I provide different database, that won't work. Is it right? What is that we provide in an application or properties? What is the database name? Where is that? Here. Am I right? Data source URL. Once you have that, excuse me, once you have that data source URL, you're trying to connect. So test connection, does it works? If you provide any wrong database name and try to do a test connection, what is the error it says? What is the error it says, Tejasvi? And why we got that error? Srujan?
Says that the memory of UPS DB1 is not found. Either it is created before or uh,
So it means, what does it mean?
we either have to change the name.
That's right. So I'm changing the name of the database and trying to test the connection, and let me connect to the database. So if I connect to the database, what is the entity I got here? If you guys see what is the entity I got here? The table, database table. Select star from
Mhm.
SQL. Run the table. There is no information. But if you see this is an SQL. Am I right? What is the SQL we have here?
Mhm.
We have a SQL of information associated to the user, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why we have only user and test? What happened to all other components? Because we haven't added entity to the other components. You have to add entity here. So if you want to create, consider, let us take this one, right? Let us take this one and let us make this bean to be created. You have to add entity. Entity is coming from which package? Entity is coming from which package? And when I create entity, billing, constructor, you have a void methods. Okay, that makes sense. No issues. Yeah. And okay. This is coming from Jakarta persistence entity package. Now we are trying to create an entity for this one also, but I suspect it has to be 200% error when I try to save a program. Let's see. I save a program. See, I got an error. Why I am getting an error? Can someone read what exactly happened here? Can someone read what exactly happened here? What is the problem with entity? When you create table, what is the first thing you have to look into when you are creating any of your table? So in SQL, every table has what? Has what? What is it? It says. What does it says? Shashank, Venkat, Shashank P.
Like it is not an identifier, has no identifiers.
Okay, so what are we missing here then? What are we missing? You're not reading what exactly happening in my screen. So what does it says? Every entity class must declare or inherit at least one ID or embedded ID property. So do you have an ID property for your entity? No, right? ID is your primary key. That's what we discussed yesterday. Remember, guys? Now if
That
you
means
see,
like entity ID works as a primary key. Is
that
that what
is
it means?
that is correct. So if you create
Okay.
any of the SQL table, so there should be a unique ID for the table. Okay.
Mm.
So how the application will know how you created a table? So if there is no unique ID, how you are going to insert the data into it? So there might be a lot of duplicate records, right? And how you are going to retrieve the information based on what key you are going to retrieve. There should be some unique value, right? So consider if you take a Gmail account or if you take a Facebook account or if you create something, so every time it will ask for a unique Gmail address. Am I right? So if
Yes.
the Gmail is already exist, it won't allow you to create. How that system is internally checking? Because it is maintained as a primary key. Am I right? Am I right, guys? So when you go to your
Yeah, Ramesh.
universities, everybody has a unique identifier. If you have your ATM card, you will be having a unique identifier number. So that is where the primary key comes into the picture to identify it as a unique. For your vehicles, you will be having a VIN number. So it's a kind of a same thing for here. So for every component, we need to maintain a unique ID in your database. That is where you can save the data, retrieve the data, update the data, or do XYZ operations. So is it clear now why we require at the rate ID here for
Yes,
any of
Ramesh.
your entity? So if you define it as an entity, it has to maintain unique identifier. And if you see here, what it is happened, it's created table billing and it's created table user, right? Now if I go in and rerun this one, now let's connect. So what are the entities I got? One is a billing entity, another one is user entity. Two tables, right? Two tables, one primary key. Do you see? What is the primary key? What is the primary key? What is the primary key here? What are all these? Billing ID, billing, all these informations are columns. Columns in the table, right? Your attributes in your model object. And billing ID is a primary key. It created an index. Am I right, guys? So that is how you can retrieve faster based on your indexes. Okay. Now, if I try to run, there is no information. Let us try to add few information and try to retrieve information and try to process URD. Okay. Now this is good. Okay. So let us close everything. So our main application is starting from which place? UPS application test. Oh no, this is a test package.
UPS application.
Yep, UPS application, not Java. So once this application starts, where the application flow is will go, to which package, to which component it will call. Spring Boot will call to which component?
Model.
Model. That's right. So model is what? User.java. And from user.java, once you have your model entity ID and all your getter and setters, everything, then what is the next place your application will trigger? What is the next place your application will trigger to? What is the next place? Once you have your model, what is the next place your application will trigger to? Which package? Controller? So your application will goes to controller first once you have a model, because this is what your request mapping is going to be happen, user slash create user. And from here, which component is being called? From controller, what are we calling? Which component? What are we trying to do here? What are we trying to do in your CURD? What are we trying to do in your CURD? We are trying to create, update, delete, and get user, right? Am I right? We are calling which class here? Once you get a data to your request body, which class are we calling here in line number 42? Which class we are calling?
User service IMP.
User service IMPL is what we are calling. So let me open user service IMPL. So this will goes to user service. Okay. and user service is going to have user service IMPL. Okay, it will directly goes to user service IMPL, but in between there is an user service interface. Okay, it won't goes to service class, it will goes to service implementation. This will comes here and try to see all the methods, all the things, all the operations. And here we are calling something again. Once you get the data, you are trying to call another class. What class are you calling? User repository. Am I right? So this will goes to user repository from here. Okay, what will happen in user repository? What user repository performs? User repository performs CURD operations. Am I right? CURD operations is like save, update, delete, all those informations. Now, as our application is started, let's try to process. Let's try to trigger few operations and see. Before I trigger few operations, I wanna run my application in debug mode. Have you guys tried running debug mode? Have you guys tried running debug mode? So wherever you have your main method, so here our main method is UPS application. Okay, right click on there, run as, sorry, debug as Java application. Okay, once you start debug as Java application, that will start. Okay, so this is started. It is started in a debug mode. Now let us try to put some debug points. So I want to put debug point in here. Okay, I'm putting a debug point here. Do you see the line breakpoint is added at which line? Line number what? Line number what? 42, right? And I want to use same breakpoint in here. Okay, there is already breakpoint added in add user. So while you are trying to add user, you will get a breakpoint. And what is the request body? What you have to send to this method? For add user method, what you need to send? You have to send what? You have to send user object. Am I right, guys? What is the method signature here? What is the method signature? Shashank, Tejasvi, Srujan. What is the method signature to add user? Shashank Gaud, Srujan, Tejasvi. What is the method signature for add user? It is a user object, right?
User object.
Yeah. So it means you have to send user object when you call this create user. So now let me open my Postman. Postman is a tool we are going to test REST endpoints. Okay. Let's see. So let me create new one. So let me try to, okay, first we have to use our URL. HTTP colon, it's no, colon / localhost 8080. And what is our application name? What is the request mapping we kept? User is our request mapping. Okay, 8080 slash user slash which one? Request mapping user slash create user, right? Constructing the URL now. Create user. And what is this method? What is this method? What is this method? What are we trying to perform here? Which mapping? Which mapping are we trying to perform here?
Post mapping.
Post mapping, right? Now it means you have to use a post mapping. So if you're trying to do some post, you need to have a body. Body uh, raw data, and you have to send a JSON. So you have to build JSON of user. So you need to get a JSON of this user object. I have to get a JSON of user object. So this is your information, right? Mm, let us do some smart work. I don't think so. I have. Okay, perfect. So we got a JSON. Do you see what we are constructing here? User ID, username, password, email, phone number, role, my object, status. So user ID is ID, username is string, everything is string, phone number is I mean longer integer, and here date is date. So if you see 2025 1210 and status is boolean, boolean is like true. So now we are saving two objects. Okay, one is 101, another one is 102, but this is list of objects saving, but our application will accept list of objects. This will get an error. What are we accepting here? What are you accepting in your controller? You are accepting only single object. You are not accepting list of object, iterate through the object and save the data. You are saving only one object. So in that scenario, what you have to do, take an array, remove an array, and remove the second object. Okay, this is a single object. Let us try to send and see what it will happen. Before I send, I will clear a console. Okay, let's send. If you see, does the debug point came at line number 42 and stopped? User default constructor is called. So now here application is at here, line number 42. If you see mouse over on user object, what is the data you got? What is the data you got here, guys? What data you got here for the user? While you are debugging, you got all the information. So this information we are passing from where? Why email phone number is null? Email is null, phone number is null. Role, everything is good. So it is not getting email and phone number. Why it is not getting email and phone number? What are we missing something in there? If you see email is null, phone number is also null. But we are sending that, right? What is wrong? Email is a kind of a string and phone number. Okay, I suspect because of some getter and setter methods. Yes. Email and phone number, right? So right click, source, generate getter and setter method. If you see, there is no getter and setter method for those. Let's create all getter and setter methods. Generate. As this is running in debug mode, it is asking, do you still want to continue debugging or restart? I want to restart. Okay, now let us try to shoot it again. What happened? Okay, it came in here. Let us see what is the information now we have. What is the information we have in user object? Are you guys able to follow how I am debugging here? Do you see user mail ID date? Do you see date is an object? So day, month, year. So we define date as in date. And if you see password, phone number, role, status, user ID, username, all those are objects. You got an information. So it came into where? From controller. So initially it came to controller. So we tried continue. Okay, we tried go next. Step over. Step over to which one? User service IMPL. So now the debugger is at where? Here, right? So how this went into from user controller to user service IMPL? Venkat, can you tell me? Ahmad, can you tell me how the data flowed from controller to user service IMPL? So if you see now, the debug pointer is at line number 45. So earlier it was in controller. Srujan, Shashank P, can you tell me how it is happened? How it is happened? Shashank Gaud, Venkat, how the data is flown from controller to service? Guys, speak up. Yes or no? The silence is a dangerous weapon. Is it okay if I be a silence from 6 to 7 joining a class? Guys, please speak up. Be friendly.
Like
Just be interactive.
controller calls the user service IMPL method.
That is correct. Simple. Where are we calling that user service IMPL method? Shashank P. Where I am calling it?
Mm.
Line number where? What are we hitting here? What are we hitting here?
Creating
Create,
the user.
What are we hitting here? What endpoint?
Oh, create user.
Create user endpoint. So where it comes? It comes into line number 40. Does it
Number
came?
40. Yeah.
It went here. At line number 42, we kept a debug pointer. It came here, and here, what are we calling? User service IMPL add user method is what we are calling. So it means it will go to user service IMPL add user method. Does it came inside add user method? Yes, right? Now, if you
Yes.
see, it is stopped here. Now, if I execute, go to the next line, what it happened? It printed add user coming from where? Here. So it is checking now user dot get user ID less than or 0. What is the user ID we have here? What is the user ID? We have 101. It means that condition doesn't satisfies. So it will come out of the black. Am I right?
Yeah, Ramesh.
It came out of the block. It doesn't went inside this. It came out of the black and it is saying now valid user. So if you see valid user ID is 101. Right? Now user list dot add that, all those operations are happening. Okay, user added. Okay, it added to the list. So now finally we are saving into the repository. Okay, save in user repository. Okay, when it inserted, if you see it select it processed. Let us see what it will happen. Let us continue. So it wasn't saved. What is the problem? It says row was updated or deleted by another transaction. Oh, okay. So ups.model user request process failed. Row was updated by another user or unsaved value with the root cause. Interesting. Let's see what happened here. It got 500 error. Let's see what happened in database. H2 console, select user, run. Oh, sorry, we just need user. No informations. Let's try to hit again. Let's see. Okay, it is still same error. I don't expect this error. What is the error? It says a row was updated or deleted by another transaction or unsaved value mapping was incorrect. Oh, okay. Mapping was incorrect. We are mapping the correct values only, right? So what are we trying to map? User ID, user email, There might be some problem with the constructor. So user ID, user email, password, phone number, role, status, username from user where user equals to.
Like as the user was before created, is it taking the user?
No, it will create only once as we are using this H2 database, right? So H2 database, every
Mm.
time we run a program, it will delete the user and create. So that is where the problem with H2, but that's okay for testing. So every times it will create a user. Okay.
Mm.
Every times we run a program, it will create a table. So whatever the data exists in a session, previous session, that will delete because of H2 database. But why it says, let
Like
us,
my doubt was like if we use like update user, like update user will the specific ID will be
but we are
created
not
in the
using anywhere update
H2.
user, right? Are we used anywhere update user? Well, I mean, we haven't called any updations for the user. We are just trying to create now. Am I right?
Okay.
Does it make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah,
So
yeah.
if you see here, I'm just trying to create. So sorry, where is that? So this is a user entity. In user controller, I say add user. When I comes into add user, in add user method, I'm just calling only user repository dot save. Here only it got breaked.
Yes.
So something is behind that. So it says it was a Java project running on a web server. No, 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 no. Let's see what is the solution. Locking is not generally happening with the performance. The problem you mentioned that doesn't work. Oh, okay. In my case, I was manually setting the ID of an entity that had generated value strategy identity. I don't think so. We are having a queue that doesn't make at the rate transactional. You probably it doesn't appear you are actually retrieving the database older copy. Ignore. Exception no. Had a problem. XYZ. Optimistic locking along with ID. I have a same issue. Digital entity table. I had a, what are we trying to do here? At the rate entity getter setter generated strategy generated value. I'm saying it as an auto. That's where it's give us 101. Oh, okay. ID auto, right? Suspect. Let us see. Spill error. Cannot invoke long value. This is null. Long value returned is null. Why it is depending? I said it to auto generate, right? Generated value strategy equals to generation type. Okay, it's restarted. Let us see. Let us try to send it the request again via postman and see what it happened. Let us try to undo the user ID as we commented there generated value generated sequence. Yep, it is inserted now. Do you see? Does it inserted?
Yes. Like how does this happen? Like
The
how did
problem
you
is
rectify the error?
the problem okay, so if you see I'm trying to send a user ID. Okay, user ID I'm sending it as a 101. Okay, so that is a primary key. But in my entity class, what I kept is auto generate the value. Okay, so I kept my primary key. I don't send any primary key. The system has to auto generate is what I'm.
Auto generated.
That is
Okay.
what a generated value strategy equals to uh, generation type. Okay, strategy equals to yeah generation type dot auto. So this has to auto generate the value. That is where I meant to kept it, and I don't want to send user ID. But when it is trying to create the user ID, what I am sending and the other one is problem, that's what it gave us error saying it was unable to create. So while we are looking into this error, while we are looking into the error, so row was updated or deleted, unmapped, your values are mapping incorrect. Most of the people says the problem is with your at the rate ID, the signature value. So if you see, most of the people say, so you are not locking. So I was looking some of the comments here. Obstimate, yeah, the logging is, so if you see, we added this one along with an ID, it worked. So identity is what they were saying to add, but we added as an auto. But auto should work. I don't know why identity is the only one it is not work. Identity will work. So there might be some glitch in there. So first check your imports. If you are processing transactional, remove the transactional. This is on service. So either entity class, if you are using generated value strategy generation type of auto, this is what we mentioned, right? So generated value, generated type equals to auto, right? So that is where I don't know, somewhere it is removing. So instead of auto, if you make it as an identity, it is working is what most of the statement says. But auto identity is a kind of a unique one. Auto is like a kind of an auto increment will happen. So that is where most of the time I use auto. So that is a problem. Now if you see the data is inserted, if you see the data is inserted, the ID is a problem. You got it? Does it make sense? Venkat, Shashank, Srijan, Ahmed.
Yes, yes. Like as we are not as the auto generate was removed now, when it try to come here, it doesn't take that input. Just that's it.
Uh,
Like when it try to like attempt the update, it just fails and doesn't give that error, right?
yeah, earlier, right? Earlier it failed and it wasn't give that error. But now I commented this line, I rerun the program and I sent a data via Postman. So whatever the user ID you are sending, I'm say, considering it as a primary and I'm saving it as a insert column is called.
Okay.
Does it make sense? Is it clear,
Yeah,
Venkat?
yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so that is how it is going to insert your data into your user information. So if you see inserting user operation is done. Now if I go in and check in my H2 database, do I have a data here for user,
Yeah.
right? I have a data 101, all the
101.
information has been passed. Okay, if I try to send another data instead of this one, so earlier we have another data, let us try to send that one. Okay, 102 as this information, let us try to send this. So where the controller came, where the debug pointer came to where?
Add user. Add
Yes.
user.
So Shashank, what is the data I'm seeing here? How I'm seeing this data? Srujan, Tejasvi, Ahmad, how I'm seeing the data here? Because we are sending the data from the postman, we are constructed an object in there and sending it here, right? Am I right, Shashank Gaur, Shashank P, Srijan? And all the information came to which part first? When I debug it, the information came to uh, controller. Once I get the information to the controller, from there it is passing to which user service IMPL. How are we calling user service IMPL? Using AutoWire. We created an object and calling user service IMPL. If you are seeing here, calling the method add user, to that method we have a signature to send the data user. And how this is getting, how the data is getting when you try to hit from a postman, right? When you try to hit from a postman, how we are able to see the data here, Ramesh? Because of at the rate request body annotation. Am I right? Am I right, guys? Because of at the rate request body annotation. If there is no request body annotation, you won't get. So here in update user, you won't get the data from the postman because it has to be request body. And if you see for single variable, if you want to read, it has to be path variable. If you want to read single param, okay. And if you see here, once you get the user information, you are passing it to user service IMPL. In user service IMPL, we are doing a operation. Now let me go to step over. It means this step is over. User service IMPL in controller is over. Then it goes here and it is printing add user in my console. Okay, debugging. It is going. So it check user exist or not, user value less than 0. It is not less than 0, it is 102. So it come out of the loop and it is sets valid user. Now it is adding to the list, processing x y z, all those are done. Then it is printing what all the information in your user. So if you see, user is having information 101. What is there in my user list? I have 101 and 102. Are we sending this anywhere? No, we are not sending this from anywhere. This is coming from the database. Am I right, guys? Am I right? Does it make sense? Where this user list coming data from? Database, right? Does it make sense? Two objects. Already one is there. We are getting the second one now. So if you see, what are the roles? Has set of roles. What are the roles? One is a global role, another one is a local role. Tree set. Does it mapping? Tree set is mapping your sorting order, natural sorting order. Is it processing? First it is saying A, then it is saying Bob. Is it right? So if you see in a roles hash set, it is saving random order. What is the first role adder? Local, but it is saying global. What is the second user role? What is the second user role? Global, but it came as a first. So hash set will not predict the insertion order. Hash set will give you a random order. Am I right? Venkat, Shashank, Srujan, Tejasvi. Do you guys follow the concepts collections, how it is happening?
Yeah.
So it won't follow insertion order, and this is following natural sorting order, and array list is storing the data in your array. And this is where it's saying user is getting added. The second user is getting from the UI. Now let's go in there and say done. Does it inserted? Inserted into where? Database. Now I can go in, I can rerun the program. So if you see here, two users are inserted. Does it make sense? Does it make sense, guys? Right? Now your assignment today is, so I will commit this entire program today. Everything is working. I will commit. So everybody has to work on your create operations. You have to create the data. You have to understand how the create is happening. Along with that create, you have to perform get and update. So I'll see tomorrow how exactly you guys are doing that. And tomorrow I will try to add multi-threading comparator comparable interfaces in user service IMPL. Let's go over each individual, how exactly happening in delete user, how exactly happening get all users, all those things. Okay. Does it make sense? Does it make sense, guys?
Yeah, Ramesh. Yes.
You got what is the assignment for today. You have to work on your all COD operation. I already showed how exactly the post is processing here, create. So you have to work on update and get and try to commit your codes. Okay, try to first see if your compiler is having any error. Try to resolve those errors and try to perform a get, sorry, post. If it is working good, then go on get and update user. Update your information, whatever the application you are using. Okay, does it make sense? Okay, then thanks everybody. Thanks for joining. Have a happy Wednesday.